Everybody thinks that they need 1,000 horsepower in their old schools, when in reality, 500 horsepower will be plenty to wrap your old car around a pole. So today, that's what we're doing. We're about to wrap a car around a pole. Let's be honest. Who really wants 1,000 horsepower? 1,000 horsepower is like trying to bring logic in a relationship. It's just pointless to some degree. I mean, it's cool because like you get a little bit of head. And I know what you're thinking. How does this handsome young black man know how to build a 500 horsepower motor? I don't, but ChatGPT does. So what we have right here is a 6.0 out of a pickup truck. Nothing special, nothing crazy, because 500 horsepower is a little bit easier than you think to crank. Now I'm gonna be showing you step by step how to turn your 6.0 into a lean, burning tire machine. Okay, that was cringe. It's a 500 horsepower combo that I have sitting behind me. I'm gonna explain the parts as we go. Let's start off with the bottom end. Sorry, throughout this video, I am gonna be talking to you guys like y'all don't know nothing, but it's not personal, you feel me? This is just for the ones that actually wanna learn something. So I'll be giving tips and tricks throughout this whole entire video. Sometimes you hear people say, oh, their bearing clearance is too tight or too loose. There's a certain measurement that you want for your bearing clearances. I have all the tools to do this. To make it easier for me, I just send my blocks off to the machine shop. I have them also check the clearances to make sure that they're standard. And what clearance is how much space the crank has to ride against the oil. Too loose, it loses oil pressure, and too tight, it burns up. So what you want to do is aim for something that's like right in the middle so it can have the perfect balance. My mains are standard, and these are just standard bearings. I mainly use King bearings for pretty much every motor I build. Before you install your bearings, you gotta clean them. Here's why. They put like an oil film or something like that, but look how dirty that is. When you're putting a motor together, you gotta make sure everything is clean. Even just because you drop your motor off to the machine shop doesn't mean that they cleaned it all the way. Like, nobody's perfect at all. Anybody can have an off day. Let's install these bearings now. You guys see these splits and these holes and these splits and these bearings right here. These go on the block side and the smooth ones go on the cap. There's a little tang right here and there's a little tang indentation right here. Your main bearings just pretty much pop on like this. Like that. On the LS, the thrust bearing is in the middle. That's what this one is. Put some assembly lube on all my mains because you do not want to install none of this stuff dry. For the thrust bearing, you want to lube up the side of those bearings. You always want to take every extra precaution. Just take you an air gun and blow out every single oil hole because you never know. Install that bad boy. Every main cap is labeled and there is a certain way that they all need to go. So 1 through 4 goes facing towards the back of the motor. 5 goes facing towards the front. The way you view that is off these little tangs right here that y'all see on the side. These are your main bolts. You're gonna have 2 different ones. You don't want to install these dry, so I'll put a light coat of oil on it. But I'm missing some bolts. And you just want to get all of these started by hand and just slowly press it down. Now that you got your crankshaft installed, you got everything walked down properly, crank should spin pretty freely. Now it's time to torque these main caps. We're going to torque down the middle bolt. So first pass is 15 foot-pounds. Now we can set our thrust, and what you're gonna do is get your rubber mallet. You're gonna tap the front of the block, and then you're gonna tap the back of the block, and that should be it. Now you can torque them to 80 degrees, which is why I like this Quinn's torque wrench so much. It's cheap at Harbor Freight. It does angle and foot-pounds, inch pounds, all of that. You ain't gotta use no extra little tools. You might wanna hold your motor because it might turn. Now we're gonna torque the outer ones to 15 foot-pounds as well. Now, if you do everything right, depending on what assembly lube you use. One time I was torquing down a motor and I probably did it like 5-6 times because it felt like it was too tight. Whole time, my assembly lube was making me think that the crankshaft was too tight. I changed the assembly lube to something like a little bit more thin and it was like butter. You should be able to spin it pretty much with no problem. I think if I can, it should be like butter. Y'all see that? That's money, dude. Now we gotta do the time consuming part, and that's putting these dang rods and pistons together. Oh All of this could be different depending on what your combo is and what you have. These are Gen 4 rods and Silverlight pistons. The Gen 4 stuff, the wrist pin isn't like a press on. You got these little 2 clips that you put on there and you slide the rod in between and boom, you're done. Now, for Gen 3 stuff, this is like a press on. So I believe you gotta like heat this up or cool it or something like that, and then you'll be able to press them on there. The reasons why you really don't want the Gen 3 rods anyway is because like, look how thin that is compared to how beefy this is. So that's the reason why we do this upgrade pretty much on every motor. It's a cheap upgrade, but let's get into installing these. It took me a little while to learn how to do this because the little groove right there where you want to get this up in there, it's kind of difficult to do. I'm gonna try my best to explain like what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna get one side in the groove and then just try to walk. Okay, well, install this side in the groove first and then just walk the big side around and you should get on there. Now this should be universal. So on every piston, new stock, there should be an indicator on your piston letting you know which way the piston should go. This dot, arrow, whatever you have on your piston should go towards the harmonic balancer. Fact check me if y'all going off this video. On all Gen 4 rods, there's a little dot on it. And what I've been doing is I've put all the dots facing towards the flywheel or the back of the motor, and it lines up. But you also can go off of the chamfers, and that's like the shape of like this rod right here. You don't want these parts right here lined up. You want them facing towards the opposite like this. My easiest way is just remembering that the dots go towards the back, because when you line them up like that, all the dots will be facing towards the same way. That's towards the back of the motor. You never want to stick anything in dry. You should know this by now. Lube up your wrist pin. Be a little two-way. Tripping. Slide that thing up in there. That's money, dude. Then you're gonna have to put your clip on one side. Just to make everything quicker, we're gonna do all of these first and then put the clip in. Now, when installing your piston rings, there's a ton of different ways you can do it. These are your oil groove rings. These are the easiest ones to put on. Well, all of them are easy, but this is the easiest. So first, you're gonna put this ring on. Super flexible, super flimsy. You don't want none of these rings facing the same way. So you're gonna make sure that this one is lined up in between these skirts right here in the middle. Second ring for the oil groove ring, and you're gonna go in at the bottom. And you're gonna want one side, the bottom one to be right here, almost on the edge, and the top one to be right here on the edge over here. And you're just gonna work that one around. Take your top ring for the oil groove, and you're just gonna walk that one on. And what I like to do is push up on the rings, try to hold it from it moving. Push that one over there, and then you can push this one right there in the middle. So now that you got your rods and your pistons all situated, you know, companies mess up too. Just because you got rings that should be standard, or some of you guys might got foul to fit, always check your rings to make sure you know what exactly the gap is. Because in my situation, these are supposed to be standard rings. All the rings were incorrect. The second ring was wrong. The first ring definitely was wrong. So they measured out to be way tighter than what they're supposed to be. And when we're talking about tightness, we're talking about the gap between here. You don't want them to be too small, because if these touch like that, pretty much could say goodbye to your pistons. So there's a certain gap that you want for boosted applications, nitrous applications, and just stock street applications. And for my application, I want my top ring to be 0.018. somewhere around there. And for my second ring, I want it to be 0.022. To check your ring gap, you have to put your ring in the cylinder. I try to get the ring as straight as possible at the top of the cylinder. You don't want to check your ring gap at the bottom because that's where it's worn out the most at, and at the top is least. So then you would grab you like an old piston and you would just push it in there and try to stay as straight as possible. Then you would take your feeler gauge and you would just check it. I would check with the biggest one first to see where it's at. That doesn't work, just keep going down until you figure out where you're at. See, these are way too tight. They're like lower than 0.16. This is a very important thing as well. Label all of your pistons and your rods so you can know which cylinder is going in, because whichever cylinder you file your rings for, you want that same piston and all of that. You want it to be in the same one. So when you're filing your rings down, there's gonna be an indicator on all rings. I normally do it with the indicator up. So there's gonna be like either a dot or it's gonna say top or whatever. And that lets you know that that's the way that the piston ring goes. Try to keep it square as possible. Try to keep both sides down. Start off for at least 5 turns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're gonna put this back in the cylinder to see where the gap is. That one was grabbing a little too hard, so we just gotta take off a little bit more and it would be right at 0.018. Now you wanna take a filer, wanna get it back flat. You might create like a little edge filing those rings. Simple. So easy. There is a little bit of an orientation that you want your piston rings to be sitting in. So y'all remember on the oil groove ring and these oil rings, we had the top one right here on this side, the bottom right there, and the oil groove ring somewhere in the middle in between that. So when you put your second ring on, you want it to be facing the opposite side. Then when you put your first ring on, you want it to be facing this side. You just don't want any of the rings to be facing the same direction. That's mainly what it is, no matter what. Remember that there's an indicator right there on the piston ring that lets you know that this piston ring is facing upwards. So you could get a tool for this, but it's just easier to do it this way. You're just gonna take the ring, start it on one side, and just pretty much walk it around, and it'll pop up in place. I don't think I ever spoke on why we switched out these pistons for these flat top pistons. And that's because if you're trying to stay budget friendly, the most you can do is raise your compression a good amount. And that's how you achieve it, is by getting flat top pistons. You can either mill your heads, you could get thinner head gaskets. All that will help you build a badass NA build. You don't have to go crazy on the cam. It will help, but then your power range will move. And also like your drivability will kind of go out the window. So like 10 to 9 to 1 or 11 to 2 to 1 or around there. Also look this up. I could be lying, I don't know. This is just what I've seen from the motors I've built. Around there is kind of like the safe area because you can still be on pump gas. You don't need E85, 93, but you need a good tune for sure. So like around there, you're gonna make damn good power at the low end, which I believe if you're building an NA car, you want your power band to be like low to mid 35, 4,500 RPMs. You want that to be like super aggressive. And then you can kind of like start to taper off when you get up into them higher RPMs. Get you some brake cleaner. You wanna make sure that your cylinder walls are clean. One last time. I'm also gonna take some transmission fluid. I'm gonna wipe the cylinder walls down again because transmission fluid helps a ton to get all that extra dirt up out of there. See that? It's clean. This is optional. This is just what I do. That's what I've been doing. I always oil up my piston rings and my pistons, even though like the cylinder walls are gonna be oiled up as well. I just take it, just get some oil on the side skirts. It's just what I do, baby. You take your piston ring compressor tool. You're just gonna like, I need my mallet. Thought I could do it without it. Hit around it like so. Don't forget to put your assembly lube on your bearings. Every rod cap is cracked and machined to go in a certain way. So don't just take off your rod caps and just throw them anywhere. You need them all to go back on the same spot. If I was you, if you don't want to remember, I would just make a line right here so you can remember it. But me personally, I just kind of always remember. where it's supposed to go. Now we get to do that 8 more times. Almost finished with the hard stuff, and then we can get to the easy stuff. Now we're about to torque down the rod bolts. You have the first design, then the torque is like 15 foot-pounds to 60 degrees. You have a second design, which is the Gen 4 rods, then it's 15 foot-pounds to 75 degrees. There's no special way to torque these down. It's just one cap, other cap. You know what I'm saying? Back and forth until you get them all knocked out. Make sure you have 110% focus on what you're doing so you don't forget torquing something, or you can mark it down with a marker. I just be locked in. I'm not going nowhere, I'm doing this. So I don't really see the need to mark anything off. So 15 foot-pounds, first pass, second pass, 75 degrees. Boom, that's simple. Now do that, say it with me, class. 8 more times. There you have it. Your bottom end is officially finished. Finally, promise you. I hate doing the bottom end because that's the most time-consuming part. Now we should be able to fly through this. Now we gotta put our solid bolts in, and from factory, it comes with a layer of RTV around it. So once you take them out, you gotta clean your surface and then put some more RTV on it. Put a little dab on there like this. And then just walk it around the boat, just like how I do it. Like this is how I do it. Just walk it around the boat. Make sure that you got RTV all the way around it. Great. Then you can torque them to 18 foot-pounds. Now we can install our camshaft, which the cam that for this motor, which is a pretty good cam, I'll put these in a lot of motors, they all make pretty good power, but it's a BTR stage 2 red hot cam. Make sure you put some gloves on because it's gonna get pretty messy. You're just gonna lather this thing down. You wanna be careful when you're doing this. You don't wanna nick your new cam bearings or nothing like that. Try to stay as straight as possible. Take a couple water pump bolts. You can throw them up in there to make this last part a little bit easier so you got something to hold on to. Pause. Here's a part number right here. This is a very important part because there's a gasket right here that controls like the oil galley to your cam and your cam bearings. This gasket can get flat, so never reuse these, always replace it. It's like one of them non-negotiables, must do's. Putting it on is pretty straightforward. It goes in one spot only. So there's an indicator on your cam gear and your crank sprocket. You can see there's a dot right there and right there. So you want your motor to be at TDC when you're setting this up. It is a little difficult if this is your first time doing it. Get the chain and everything lined up properly. I still sometimes struggle with it. Just one of the things you just gotta finesse. Like that. Loctite for your bolts. And then you're gonna torque it down to 26 foot-pounds. On one full rotation, everything should line back up and the dots should be lined up and you should be back at TDC. So that's how you know. Before we forget, we gotta install this little barbell back here in this little oil hole. So we gotta lift this motor back up. Where this little oil barbell goes right here in the back of this block. Usually it comes with a plastic one like this, but you can see this one has 3 O-rings on it, and you can screw a little screw in there if you ever gotta take your motor back apart or something like that. But it just pretty much pops in. Just put some oil assembly lube, it just pops in there. That piece is very important. It passes the oil through the oil filter or blocks it off and lets it go up and then come out through the oil filter, something like that. I don't know. All I know is I know how to build them. I don't know why, I just know how to build them. Do it even matter why? As long as the bit make oil pressure and sound good, who cares? Put this rear cover on here while we got this off. Since we don't have oil pan alignment tool, we're just gonna use our oil pan as the alignment tool. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna leave pretty much all your front cover and your rear cover pretty much loose, like this. Now we can install our oil pump. And I bet you guys are probably realizing that building a motor isn't that hard. Not like how people make it seem. Installing the oil pump, you got these little grooves right here and these grooves inside the oil pump. And all you do is just slide it on until it's great. Like that. Put some Loctite on your oil pump bolts. There's a couple different ways you can torque it down. Everybody lives by it differently. But the way that I normally do it all the time is I have my oil pump just hand tight. Probably turn my motor over 1 full rotation. And what that does is it self-centers it, and now you can torque it down to 18 foot-pounds. Before you install your oil pickup tube, you gotta make sure that you have the right O-ring. When it comes to knockoff oil pans, I would never use the O-ring that comes with them. Me personally, I just don't trust it like at all. So I go out and get one of these. It comes with 2 different O-rings, black one or a green one. Now, the way you check to see which O-ring you need by getting some calipers, and you will measure the base of it, and it should be a certain size, and then you're gonna measure the tip, pause. It should be 0.87 at both, and that will let you know that you need the black O-ring. And it's not that size, then you're gonna need the green one. Simple. Put some oil on this O-ring, and you don't wanna pinch this O-ring. You wanna apply, see, like that. I pinched it. And just imagine I would just torque that down and call it a day. Oh, it. And that's one thing I like about the aftermarket pickup tubes. It comes with a plate. You can put 2 bolts in there instead of just 1. This gets torqued down to 8 foot-pounds, and that's about hand tight. We are almost finished. Oh, this stuff takes forever. Now you can put your front cover on. Like I said, remember, we're just gonna get these hand tight. Now we can put our oil pan gasket on and let this RTV sit for a little bit before we actually torque down stuff. These holes do not line up for nothing. I don't know if it's because this is a knockoff pan and they probably got a different gasket, but these back 2 holes right here are always the toughest one to get started. That's just for me. I don't know if this is for everybody, but for me. So once you have all your bolts in your oil pan, pretty much what you're gonna do is, since you left this finger loose and the rear cover finger loose, you're just gonna walk your cover up to your oil pan. And you're gonna do the same with the back. And that should leave your cover to be flush with the block. But if you're not comfortable doing that, then go out on Amazon, get you the little alignment tool, or maybe take your chance and do this. I've never used that alignment cover tool, so hey, maybe I'm lucky. I don't know. Torque specs for the oil pan is 18 foot-pounds. Start from the middle and just go in a crisscross pattern. The rear cover bolts to 106 inch-pounds. We finish up this engine, which we were pretty close. We gotta make it look pretty first. So I'm gonna snap and this motor's gonna be beautiful. See, it's that easy. I don't think I've really been explaining it too good how this motor is gonna make 500 horsepower. I think the LQ9 came with the flat top pistons. From stock, these motors came compression probably 9.4 to 10.0 to 1 compression. So mine's had disc pistons. This motor originally made with the same upgrades, it made 411 to the tire. So if you take away the drivetrain loss, that's about 500 or close to 500 to the wheel. It doesn't take much, and that's what I'm trying to let you guys know. I'm willing to argue that there's a lot of other things that matter more than just your engine combo. What transmission do you have? What rear end gears do you have? These heads flow 325 CFM. These are 799 heads, 243 heads. My compression now is gonna be 10.6 to 1, close to 11. So we bumped up the compression a good amount. Of course, the BTR red hot cam helps out a ton. It wakes the motor up a good amount. Now, if you want to make 500 to the wheel, you might have to sell your soul. But our last step is just torquing these heads down, and then we are done. So if y'all stuck around, this is the part where I tell you how this motor exactly is gonna make 500 horsepower. Now there's one thing I didn't let you guys know. I was talking about 500 to the crank. And if you thought I was talking about 500 to the wheel, you're crazy. I mean, it's possible. More cubic inches, probably more compression, probably a little bit bigger cam, good intake. You can, I seen a vet make 498 and it was like a cam head. So from factory, these motors only made about 345 horsepower. That ain't much, but that's a good starting point. Now, if you had the LQ4, LQZE, whatever it's called, the one with the dish pistons, then your compression is gonna be like 9.5 to 1 or somewhere around there. And if you had the flat top ones, but mostly they all came with 317 heads, which those are garbage. You're gonna get rid of your 317 heads, go and get you some 243 heads. You're gonna have to get them ported. Well, you could probably upgrade later. But if you want this 500 number and you're chasing numbers, you're gonna have to get your heads ported. So go and get your 243 heads ported, get some aftermarket heads. Hell, get some LS3 heads. It's gonna make it way more achievable. My compression is about 10.5 to 1, a little bit more, somewhere around there. I don't know, that's what ChatGPT said. So we just going off of that. Get you a stage 2 BTR red hot cam. You do not need to go aggressive with the cam unless you do not care about drivability and all you're doing is chasing power. If that's the case, get a stage 30 cam. Get the biggest thumping cam you can. I'm just playing, don't do that. Get you a stage 2 BTR cam. Like I said, this combo made 411 to the wheel, which is pretty good with dish pistons, so with less compression. Get you some long tube headers. You're gonna need that. You're gonna need a good converter, you're gonna need good rear end gears because all of that plays a big factor as well. We went with a sheet metal intake, but we're about to get a fast intake for it. So that's gonna even help out even more. But Turbo SS intake will be perfect as well. Intake one has like this raised little hump, like right here, diagonal straight to the intake port. And it's like, you can see it and the exhaust doesn't. Like it doesn't have anything. You're gonna torque down those ones first and then come back and turn the motor over 360 degrees and then torque down the exhaust. And we're torquing it down to 22 foot-pounds. And if you ask me, honestly, bro, and there you have it. If you guys found this video helpful at all, or if you learned something and I helped you out and you just wanna be a kind of person, please leave a like, subscribe, stay tuned for more videos. I'm being as consistent as I can, you know what I'm saying? But that is literally how you build a 500 horsepower LS 6.0. It's that simple, dog. Now, take what you just learned and turn your little turd bucket into one of these. You should have no excuse to be the slowest person in your car group no more if you own one of these. Just saying.